Well, hello everybody. It's awesome to see you here today. And I am Matthew Taylor with Persuasion Through Narrative, and it is 2 o'clock Mountain Time. And that means one thing. Yes, it is time for Make Stories Matter, where we chat for a few minutes here about a kind of a segment or a thought or an idea about story and kind of trade ideas and see what we think's there. And so this week, what are we going to be chatting about? We're going to be chatting about story structure and kind of how does it help us and why sometimes it can be a little wee bit confusing. Uh, and so that's a scoop. Last week, you might remember, I was down in Dingley Dell, or as I would say it, on the lakeside with my buddy Matt Nee, because I was teaching down in Nashville, and it was a delight down there. And as we were doing it, it popped up on I think Matt's feed that Sean Connery had died, um, and that was actually true. Um, it just wasn't true that he died that moment. He was actually quite very dead, if that's a thing, because he actually died in October 31st of 2020. And I guess it might have been because there was an anniversary of it that it popped up, and I was chatting about it. So I hope I didn't mislead people on that one. Plus, I kind of chatted about him being English a lot, or not being English, but being English myself and growing up with him and all the rest of it. People might have thought he was English. Of course, he was Scottish and very proud of that fact, and so he should be. So I thought I'd clear that up just a little bit there. So today, talking about structure, it kind of leads on a little bit about what we chatted about last week, which was exposition and how exposition can kill. Um, I should also mention when we're chatting about stories, we're looking at it through a lens of personal narrative, of purposeful stories that will use our own stories or stories of others, or our own inner stories that will help us connect and build relationships, friendships, um, uh, really much quicker than we could ever do it by just kind of listing numbers, figures, and facts and things like that. So that's always the lens I'm kind of looking through. Of course, in other stories, some of these pieces don't apply as much. And I had a lovely conversation with Hillary, or at least a few comments and traded back, who has been a director for many years in the theatre and as an equine coach as well. And she was chatting about how when she was teaching, she would teach activated exposition at the beginning of plays to be able to keep that exposition really moving until it hits the critical moment and starts to go up. And so uh, there are all kinds of different ways of looking at these things. And so please don't think that I'm sitting here trying to tell you this is the one way. But certainly, if you're using it for like personal narratives, real stories that happen to real people, then I think a lot of this is how it applies or is applicable. So with that said, that was kind of quite a large amount of me going, and by the way, not this, that. What is it called? Disclosures? Something like that. Anyway, let's look at story structure a little bit here. Um, I am always kind of looking for simplicity and finding kind of relatively simple ideas of it because of course you can think of structures as story, things like Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, which is beautiful and incredibly accurate and amazing, but they're like these 12 steps as you move around through the hero's journeys, and those were a little bit tricky, I felt, for people to be able to grab hold of and use instantly. And so I was looking for a more simple one, and this is incredibly popular, and it's a well-known one, and that is Freytag's pyramid. And Gustav Freytag was a German dude around 1960s, and he was a playwright, novelist, and he started seeing patterns occurring all the time within the different works that he was doing or reading and studying as well. And so he came up with his pyramid. So you can imagine what shape it is, and I will show you. So this is Freytag's pyramid right here. Yeah, let's sit back a bit. There we go. So what is happening on this little thing? And I'm sure tons of you will have recognized this and gone, yeah, I totally get this. Okay, so you start out and you kind of have this over here. You have exposition, and then something happens, and the action starts going up to the climax at the very top, and then the falling action comes down, and then the resolution. So simple enough. I used to not teach a lot of structure when I was kind of talking about it because, as I said, I deal mainly with personal narrative. And if it's personal narrative, it's happened. And so the structure is always there. It's like it wasn't as if people came up with story structure and then people started telling stories. It was the other way around. People were always telling stories and people came up with a structure. So if I'm, say, 10 years old, riding my bike down a hill, I lose control, hit a tree, break my leg, go to hospital, boom. It's already in there. So I didn't always kind of spend a lot of time on it. I have changed a little bit on doing that because there is an area that I think is critically important and very helpful when thinking about your own stories or other stories, business stories, uh, because this is what I think tends to be very important. Now, this is going to be, this is where I don't have enough hands. Okay. It's live. That is the beauty of Facebook Live. Open the pen. There you go. Got it. So this is what I think is kind of a key part. So we talked about how the exposition is right here and it's going along and how we like to get to our stories. Well, getting to it is to this spot right here. This is the spot. And it is usually called the inciting incident. Yeah, I'm sure you can read that. The inciting incident. But I think that this is the spot that is kind of critical for the whole part. Think of this area when, as if there is a break in the routine. Something changes, and that is what is the cause for this action to start rising. And you may have multiple pieces going along at different times up it as it rises and it goes up, but it is always this little spot here. So when I sometimes are working like with defendants in jails and things like that, I'll ask them, so when was the time that you felt like everything shifted? When was it that everything started to go south and there was a chain of events started that ended up with you and me talking to each other? And they can nearly always take you right to it. I mean, people know. But if we can identify it, we can get there quickly. We can decide how much exposition. Now, this is the other thing. The rising action kind of takes off and it goes up to your climax and your falling action, your resolution. And this is how I nearly always see this shown in textbooks. After all, it is Freytag's pyramid. So the fact that it's a pyramid shape makes a whole ton of sense. But this is what is kind of weird. If you have a moment, a little homework for you, which will be kind of fun, and that is to go to YouTube and punch in Best Buds or Budweiser ad Best Buds. And it was an ad that showed during the Super Bowl. It ended up right at the end of the Super Bowl. And it was a one-sided Super Bowl, and it's difficult and painful for me to talk about it because it was actually when Denver got crushed by the Seattle Seahawks. So it showed a very small audience, but it was one of the most successful ads of all times. But it is masterful for a piece of storytelling. And what you can do is go and check out these passes. See where the exposition is, where the inciting incident is, the rising action that goes up to the climax, and then the falling action and the resolution. Now, sometimes spotting the climax is harder if you're looking at it when the rising action ends. And what can be kind of good is to look at when did you go, and start relaxing, or go, it's all going to be okay. That which is where the falling action starts. So if you feel that is one way, and then the resolution is when it's tidily kind of finished up. But have a little look and see that you'll love the ad. It also shows you very dramatically how we have chemicals in our brains, little neurotransmitters, and how you get this flood of oxytocin and feel very different after 57 seconds. So well worth going and checking it out. But this is what I learned from it. Because it was so well done, I decided to map the areas. And I'll give you a clue. It's like, I think that the inciting incident happens, it's puppies are being adopted and all the rest. And then this one puppy goes under the fence, the universal sign of under the fence, and he's off on this adventure. And it builds and builds and builds. It does drop for 1 second, then goes back up again. But it gets to the climax where these Clydesdales, lo and behold, help and rescue the puppy. Of course they do. And then the puppy returns and comes back, and then it's reunited with the horse, and they're frolicking in the field, and it is in the paddock, and life is absolutely fantastic. So I mapped those little moments on here to see if it looked like Freytag's pyramid. And what I discovered is this is a good idea when you are thinking about Freytag's pyramid. Go like this. Get rid of all of this. It's going to be more. Here we go. I can't do it. I just can't do it. It's why we have English teeth. It's because we keep using our teeth as like pliers and things like that. So this is really what it looks like. And this is what you want to think about. So this is the falling action, and this is the resolution. And the resolution is, let's see this again. This is working well, isn't it? Everything's going swimmingly right now. Okay, here we go. So it's this. So when you kind of look at it, I mean, it's literally like 6 seconds here. It's like 41 seconds here. It's like 6 seconds here and like 3 seconds here. So when you think of this story structure and you're sharing a story, think more about this is the structure that it is usually like. Now, if you're going to do a 3-act screenplay and it's different pieces or a novel or something, there are variations on it all. But certainly when you're telling a story, what we're interested in is this rising action. And so this is why I'm saying kind of get to it fairly quickly. You can always fill in exposition as you go up the rising action. So don't think that just because you didn't get it in here, you can't put it in another spot. But this is when we're engaged as an audience. This is when we are like sitting on the edge of our seats and we're all excited. This is then get it out. Finish your story. Just end it. End the story. You can stop. It's something that's hard. And we'll chat about endings at another time sometime. But go check out that little ad and have a look. And I'll see if I can post it in the Powerfully Fun Storytelling group that I have on my Facebook. I'll probably stick the link in there for you, so you can kind of grab it there as well. But these are things to think about all the time when you're kind of working with your stories. And some people find that idea of structure kind of comforting, and other people find it really restricting because it's a structure. The only time I think that you really do need to understand story structure is if you're working in fiction. Because as I said, it's nearly always embedded if you're sharing real stories and those moments that happen. But once you dive into that world of fiction and you are making things up and you're doing it, you really want to make sure that you understand structure well, because your stories really do have to go through those areas. And once we're on that story arc, when we are working on that, we are transported. We lose all kind of sense of we start having suspension of disbelief and start just accepting stuff as we hear it or see it. And it is kind of one of the beautiful and powerful things about story. And so the structure is very cool, and it's important to kind of have an understanding, a thought of it. The deceptive part that I mentioned, how it helps us, but why it can be deceptive. The deceptive part is it's not equal measures. Load the rising action, and that is usually the case, and the rest are much, much shorter and quicker, so you can get to them. So, tip-wise is get good at spotting the inciting incident, that change in the routine, the break of the norm, and you'll sense it when things take off, Once you get good at spotting that and understanding that, it really helps you kind of, especially if you're doing this for work and you're dealing with complex information. It's like, what's the important piece? When does it take off? When can you help your audience start really understanding the data that you're trying to deliver? And then the other one is just to remember that rising action. It's heavier in the rising action than it, so it's not those equal measures. Hope that helps. Kind of fun. I like chatting on structure. Do go out and check that ad out. That's kind of fun. So I'm Matthew, and this is Make Stories Matter, my Facebook Live, Wednesday at 2 o'clock each time. Please go to MatthewTaylor.com. You can sign up on my website to chat with me if you have interest, or to chat about different bits, or to chat about workshops that I offer. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, Powerfully Fun Storytelling is a Facebook group of people who like stories and enjoy it, and we can have conversations in there about those things. Um, next week, I think we're going to not stick on the structural parts of stories. We're going to chat. We talk a lot about connection and relationships, and of course, this brings friendships, and so that's what we're going to explore a bit. What is connection? What is relationship? What is friendship? Are they all the same? And do they happen in different elements? And so we'll kind of explore that. And I think it's a good one to explore now, at this kind of a time, because I think that's what we're all thirsting and trying to head towards a lot of the time, which is to have these relationships or friendships, with people and this connection. So that is our little bit for this week. And so thank you so much for joining. If you have any comments, I'd love to hear them, and I'll try and get back to you as quickly as possible on them, and we can have a little discourse. Otherwise, have a smashing week. It is a beautiful fall day today in Denver, Colorado. The leaves are blowing around everywhere, and it's bright blue sky, and life is good. Take care, guys. Bye.